oftentimes there's something in the way of you believing that God can hear you or that you can hear from God.
Yeah.
Which can feel isolating, right?
Yes.
Of course
yes,
it does.
It's absolutely true. With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoweh's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more. Welcome back, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. We took our break just as you were asking me the question, SJ, about my experience in this and what's happened, or how did I navigate that with help. And so, the COVID thing was a big challenge because I think it has lasting effect. And I'm probably, like a lot of people, I had a bout with it early in 20. Is that right? Is that how long ago it was?
Yeah, it was October or September of 20.
And then had another encounter with it in 2022, the early, not near as bad, but I think that for me there's a few things that I found as kind of rituals now, or spaces where I have to find encouragement. You have to find courage. You have to find encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
So Graham Cooke on YouTube, I find him to be one of the most encouraging faculty members of mine. When I think of the School of the Heart or the Heart University, I enjoy his teaching because as I listen to it, it's so much about belovedness and so much about God's attention and my responsibilities as well, my opportunities as well.
Right.
It's
and his English accent helps too.
And he's
fun to listen to.
He just sounds fatherly, in that space.
Does.
And I'd mentioned about breaking any agreements and stuff, but somewhere in there, I would share letting Robin know how I was feeling. I like what you said in the first part of this particular episode, that if you don't know why or how you're feeling, it's hard to communicate that.
Right.
And it may be as much as just something's not right, something's wrong, and gosh, I just thought of another thing, like that wasn't particularly my story, but doing what we do and getting to engage with people who often are in a dark space or in a dark season. Blood work is a good idea.
Right.
Ruling
things out.
The body is not always in alignment.
Right.
And so, gosh, fatigue, and I can't work, and this part of me hurts, or I just have no energy. Well, when you get a blood work up, you might find you don't have iron, you don't have enough, whatever.
Sure.
And that can be a huge thing. So I'd
could
add
be
that.
Physiological.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the body goes through seasons of things.
Sure.
From menopause to low testosterone to just different things that are going to affect how you feel.
Seasonal affective disorder.
Allergies.
Right.
And all of that. So COVID had a physiological contribution for sure. And, there's this thing that we've been exploring the last few years about grieving and grief and sad and being okay to process sadness, I think that can be a collection, if not processed. It just can add to, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. Nobody understands. Nobody, I don't know anybody I can talk to. I mean, that kind of talk, that all is isolation talk,
Yeah.
And so how do you, for me, I think I'm a fortunate man that I have friends that don't always recognize when I'm out of sorts, that kind of, but I still have friends that I feel like I can trust to say, man, can I talk to you about something? And I'm not doing good. I'm not well. I don't feel connected, because we talked earlier in the beginning of defining this. This doesn't always mean that you're by yourself.
Right.
You can be with people. You can be on a team. You can be connected, at least, in the office or on mission, but you're not connected.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And I've seen that in you before. I've seen you work through, particularly in the last couple years, the tension between, I'm the director of this ministry. I'm leading our endeavors, or our efforts at a weekend, and yet I'm feeling isolated, or I'm feeling subpar, or I'm feeling taken out even. And rather than saying, well, I'm the guy everybody else looks to, so I better pull up my bootstraps
and show,
and not show any of that or whatever.
Yeah.
But really, you've done a great job of being willing to say, to the men around you that you can trust, hey, I'm riding the struggle bus a little bit here, and because you've done that, I've seen that in myself and in the rest of the team, the freedom to do that.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. I think those are all helpful. The one thing that it could be really hard for folks, just depending on where they're at, but I had collected years and a couple decades of learning how to talk with God and to listen to Him. I think that's a huge element of being honest with Him, journaling, or we call it prayer. I just talking with Him and asking Him questions. And what is this? I think in some occasions, I don't know how rare, but even the accusation that you're alone. Robin shared the story of Eowyn and Wormtongue. You're all alone. Here's this accusation. Here's this idea that's being put across to your heart to receive it or not, and the subtleties of that. I think of my daughters come to mind. They are not alone. We would go, we would do, but if they're convinced that they are, and that's what happened to Adam and Eve, we were ashamed, we were afraid, so we hid.
Yep.
And so you're
vulnerable, right? And not necessarily in a good way. And then a lie comes along that reinforces. See, Dad didn't answer the phone when you called. You are on your own,
right? And
it's just your phone was off. I mean,
right.
Could be.
I had it off. I turned off the notifications. It's amazing how hijacked we can get. And I know not everybody has a family who that might be true for. That I think for Robin and I, the girls, as much as they may want to do it on their own or not ask for help. In our family, we would love the chance to help, need to know that, somehow, some way this is not going well for you. Come home. Okay. You can't, we'll come there. I mean, that's just, I think one of the, ways in which, even in a particular family like ours, they don't believe, they don't see it.
Yeah.
is available.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean by taking that courageous step and being met, at step 2 or 3, or maybe as soon as you turn around in that. So,
right. And as you're talking about, that courageous step being talking with God, right, through prayer, you've told the story a number of times, but I'll just bring it up again briefly. Oftentimes there's something in the way of you believing that God can hear you or that you can hear from God.
Yeah.
Which can feel isolating, right?
Yes.
Of course it does.
It's absolutely true. So all of that, I think, is part of why I was saying, getting into some of those books that bring some orientation into what we're talking about, so we don't have to take this podcast and go way into that. But I like what you said earlier. When I was not doing well, or when I feel, and I think we all take our turns in this thing from time to time. But I've learned some things, like beauty is good. I'm not a gardener. I don't watch gardening shows, but I can go walk into Lowe's, into the garden center, and just be amazed and reminded there's a creator, there's good in this world, there's beauty, and I can enjoy that. Some people really like candles. They just forgot that they do, but to set out on a porch, if the weather allows, and to light a candle and let the beauty of the flame. You don't need a bonfire. You don't.
Right.
But just, things that, do you remember Brock's candy?
Yeah.
I mean, there was the big pit of it all.
Yes.
Even to
showing our age, talking about hard candy.
Yeah. But to, something that's good for you. And I'm not talking about nutritionally.
No,
now.
One of my favorite things to do is to go find a car show.
Yeah.
And walk around restored, and some of them not restored, but just I love the design and looking at the engineering and the intentionality of the design of these vehicles. It's beautiful to me.
And acknowledging that God's with you and you're with God in those spaces. So I like lemon drops. Brock's,
I'm a bullseye guy.
Right? Do you remember the little root beer barrels?
I do.
So if there's time, if there's anything that you can do that can reflect on something that you did love, that when you were alive,
that's
when
good.
you were those are very, very helpful, and to think about, I mean, we're just accessing this in our own hearts right now, in live moments that, your favorite funny show or movie, that stuff's so available now, right? Yeah. Something to laugh at. Laughter would be a beautiful thing. We've watched and have found some great encouragement from Dry Bar.
Dry Bar comedy.
It's clean.
It is.
They have to be clean because that's the Dry Bar. But to enter into some of those kinds of things. Yeah. Sunrise, sunset, beauty, flowers. If you have a garden space, like we have the Duke Gardens here, or the botanical, gardens, and so I'm
just thinking about movies. We at our weekends we take movie clips because they're modern day parables. So watching a movie, that would be good for your heart.
And seeing some, because movies keep taking from our story.
Of course.
So you're going to see in so many films, whether it's The Lord of the Rings or Seabiscuit or Bagger Vance, you're going to see isolation, and you're going to see characters move through it, and how provision comes, and they can bring just enough hope that maybe it can inspire you to take your step. I would add, to Graham Cooke, we talked about, listening to things good for you and encouraging things. Psalms are full of lament and full of hope. Yeah. So to
much
get
like
back
life,
back into the Psalms, and maybe you're familiar, listeners, with an NIV or a New American Standard. So move to the Message or the English ESV. Move to
your
something
heart a break
different
if it needs it.
than the routine. Be surprised somehow by a translation that maybe you're not as familiar with, and maybe there's some more. The Amplified is another one.
The Amplified Bible is a great one.
To just kind of get in there and find something different than even though you've got this highlighted or underlined in your Bible. Maybe you can, the YouVersion Bible app, they have devotions there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of technology.
And it will read the Bible to you.
Yeah. So
I mean,
very, 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 so when you don't have any strength to even, turn those pages, that's a beautiful thing. The other one, when I think of technology, the YouVersion Bible app and their reading plans, audio, and now they're doing video and stuff too. That's one. The other one is, I really think Eldridge hit a home run, John Eldridge, with the Pause app.
Oh, yeah.
And the 31 Days to Resilient. I would highly recommend that if somebody is finding, or even if you're just needing something new, a little different to enter into space with God, I would recommend that. But isolation, and I mean, John and his team validate this is a hard time in the world.
Right.
And just to hear that for some people would be like, yes, it is. It's happening, all over. That in the spiritual realm, the enemy has released so many things to diminish and discourage and accuse and bring fear. Financial spaces. That's that in my story. That's a place where I've been vulnerable and attacked at my ability to provide for my family, and having, it'd be nice to have had 2 nickels to rub together. I only had one, in certain seasons, and everybody seems to have had some of those seasons. But man, that's when what I feel like is I need to retreat to a place of shame where isolation is
under judgment,
just trying to drag me to, so that they can beat me up over here in the corner. Fear, guilt, shame, and those things. So, and then, well, I deserve it, or I mean, the agreements that come, and so even when you get out of there, seasons change, some provision comes or whatever. Those agreements you made in that season, they will go with you.
Even though circumstances
changed. Yes. And that is true in the other realm space as well, that the agreements that we make with God, the agreements that we make that are good, they'll go with you when circumstances change.
Right.
And Paul talks about that.
Right.
And Peter talks about that. James and John talk about that.
Don't forget who you are in the midst of these difficult circumstances. So, the one that I think of and have to mention, Michael, as we kind of land the plane with some encouragement and maybe some things to move towards, is worship music and soaking prayer.
Those are great. Yeah, go ahead. That's beautiful.
Well, some of the biggest breakthroughs I've experienced in my spiritual journey have occurred during times of soaking prayer. And, Tom, maybe we'll have Tom on to talk about it again. We've had him on to talk about it before, but, soaking prayer is just a time where you can do this all different ways. Maybe it's different for everybody, but, lowering the lights, turning off anything that, is going to give you a notification or an alarm bell of some kind. And just for 10, 15, 20 minutes, listening to one of Tom's favorites is Laura Woodley.
Laura Woodley's good.
She's great.
Graham Cooke has his soaking stuff.
We actually created about a 15-minute long kind of a medley of music and Graham Cooke.
Artists that do that,
And so it's a really great way to connect with the heart of God, spark and reinvigorate your imagination, which can, when you're isolated and feeling under judgment and shame and guilt, all of that gets shut off, and so
hijacked.
Hijacked.
I find mine operating at I still can
imagine terrible scenarios,
but I imagine terrible things.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
So. Yeah, recentering your heart and your mind and your thoughts on God is a crucial crucial exercise, and it can become, a discipline. I heard a preacher one time, you engage in a discipline long enough, it becomes a delight, right? And so the discipline of saying, okay, I'm going to start my day with 10 minutes of soaking prayer. And then you can't live without it, it feels like. So I want to encourage folks to engage in that too.
Yeah, one last thought that I wanted to share, I had to close with is, sin, which is a big can of worms in and of itself, but sin has a way of isolating.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's your sin, sin against you, sin at you. When somebody does something to you that isn't of God, that isn't in alignment with the kingdom, that's pretty much out. If it's not that one of those things, then it's probably not good, and that is in this other category. There's just not a lot of middle ground,
right?
Or somehow neutral. But so I think that people are carrying sin against them, and that really does aid or add to feelings of isolation, betrayal, suffering, abuse,
mistrust.
Oh man, all of that is just so powerful to isolation. And then there's this other part that there's things I've done, this sense that there's things I've done that are so not good, so bad that I can't. God won't love me. I can't be. I'm not lovable, and that's isolating.
Oh man.
So when sin's involved, the crazy great thing about what I'm about to say is there is remedy that's been taken care of. God has put in play a system that absolves us from that kind of punishment that isolation brings. Now, there could be consequences. There's no doubt about that. I'm not saying that, sin doesn't carry with it some consequences, but the consequences are not God stops loving you or you're unlovable. And that's where the enemy wants to really specialize in this so that he can get you in this space of you're alone, nobody sees you, nobody cares, you're isolated, and then they do their worst work. And that's why we wanted to do this series. That's why we're on this campaign for ending isolation. That's why, hopefully, if there's one or two things out of, I think, of the whole several episodes, 40, 50 things that we've talked about and tried to name them and identify them and create a space for, we believe you, listener. We get it. It's hard. But what if in that space is the beginning of God's provision meeting you in that just, I say step because it has something, it sounds and feels tangible, but even the slightest ability to look toward him, to move your gaze to his, that might be the step that we're taking, not a path, not put your shoes on.
That's the story of the paralytic, right?
He couldn't do anything.
Pool of Bethsaida. It's Bethsaida. It's is that right? Bethsaida?
Pool of Bethsaida.
Yeah. I think it is. Anyway,
I don't
you guys know what I'm talking about.
I don't have a retainer in that. Now, Bethsaida. So,
but he walks up to this guy that's been laying there for a couple of decades.
Right.
And Jesus just says, what is it you want? Not, okay, stand up and tell me what you want, or make a move and tell me what you want. Just, what is it you desire from me? And
where are you?
Just do you want to be well?
Just like
right?
he asked that, and where are you?
So
what
it's
do you
this
want?
engagement. Before there's even an action step, there's this engagement of the will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
it's paramount.
Yeah,
and it's the first thing that's needed, and I think when you're in that place, it feels like the last thing you can do.
No question.
But if you can get to the last thing you could do, then you might be on your way. So I hope I'm hopeful that talking about this exploring this together, naming some things. Hopefully in this session, we've had some kind of encouragement to acknowledge this is a hard place to be, and there are some things you can do without having a to-do list, but hopefully they're they're on your phone, they're available right outside your door, and to try to make them as easy as possible when you're in such a difficult space.
The irony of it all, man, is that when you feel isolated, you feel like you're alone and you're the only one going through what you're going through. I want to tell you, every single person on the planet battles this in some way, shape, or form at some time in their life. And so that irony of, I'm the only one going through this, all of those lies that come, it's not true. You're not the only one going through this. And the encouragement we want to give is if all you can do is reach out to someone and say, I don't want to be alone anymore. I don't want to be isolated anymore. I need help.
Yeah.
You can shoot us an email, exploringmore@zoweh.org. We'll
Agreed.
connect you with people.
Right.
We'll talk with you. We're happy to do that.
Yeah. That's the best last thing to say is, if nothing else is working, and the only thing you can summon would be to reach out to us, I believe we could take care of some of this. I think we could come around you with some of our resources, some of our allies, some of our team.
Yeah.
And a conversation, it really starts with a conversation.
It really does.
And so I would extend that invitation as well, SJ. That's really good.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening again and for watching. If you leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice, it really helps us be found, helps Zoweh and its message of life, love, and freedom be found. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Until next time, we look forward to exploring more and pray that God will come and meet you in your day-to-day, wherever that is, and whatever that looks like, he'll make good on his offer of life and life to the full. So we'll be praying that for you. Till next time on the Exploring More podcast. Take care. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoweh.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoweh on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoweh on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.